You ever see those people who just command an incredible amount of power and almost magnetic influence, but they never even raise their voice? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the blueprint for that exact kind of silent power. Let's get into it. It's a wild question, isn't it? But we've all seen it. That one person walks into a room and boom, they have everyone's attention, everyone's respect, and they haven't even said anything yet. So how do they do that? It's not magic, that's for sure. It's a strategy. The source material we're diving into today comes from this niche field people call dark psychology. Now, that sounds pretty intense, right? But at its core, it's really just about understanding human behavior and social dynamics so deeply that you can start to influence them, usually for your own personal gain. And that idea is the foundation for everything we're about to unpack.
All right, so how does this actually work? Let's get into the mechanics. The very first pillar of this whole philosophy is all about the active, hands-on techniques you can use to gain social control. These are the offensive plays, if you will.
The big idea here is to basically steer any social interaction you're in. We're talking about controlling the flow of a conversation, creating this kind of mystique that makes people almost obsess over you, and using some very specific psychological levers to get inside their heads and influence how they think and feel.
And that phrase right there really just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? This isn't just about being charming or persuasive. It's about understanding someone's inner world so well that you can practically navigate it for them. It's a very, very direct and intentional way to gain influence.
Okay, so that's the active part. But now we're going to shift gears. We're moving from those direct tactics to the second pillar, a strategy that's way more passive, but you could argue a whole lot more powerful. This is all about establishing your presence as a force to be reckoned with without having to be loud about it.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. You see the contrast here, right? Instead of being loud and confrontational, which is always reactive, the goal is to be silent and observant. That's what keeps you in control. It's kind of like the difference between a barking dog and a silent panther. One is just making noise. The other has a true presence of power that feels, well, untouchable.
So here's the bottom line. The whole point of this silent dominance thing is to project this aura that just automatically commands respect. When you seem unshakable, totally in control, people just start to treat you differently. They approach you with a kind of respect, not because you screamed for it, but because your very presence just implies it.
But okay, how do you actually become that untouchable presence? Well, that takes building an internal fortress. And that brings us to pillar number 3, which is all about creating the mindset of emotional detachment. Think of it as your armor.
And the source material is crystal clear on this. Your greatest strength, your absolute ultimate weapon in all of these social dynamics is your ability to control your own emotions. I mean, think about it. If people can't get a reaction out of you, they can't manipulate you. You've basically neutralized their number one tool.
And to get to that point, 3 key practices are really emphasized. First up is strategic isolation. You're disconnecting from others' influence to build self-reliance. Second, you sharpen your observation skills so you can see the real motives behind what people do. And third, you master silence, which makes sure that when you do finally speak, your words land with maximum impact.
So, let's recap. We've got the active influence tactics, the silent dominance strategy, and the emotional armor of detachment. But where did all this stuff even come from? Well, as it turns out, these very modern-sounding social strategies have some very, very old roots.
Yeah, the thing is, none of what we've just talked about is actually new. Not really. This is all just a 21st century packaging of a much older and way more infamous school of thought on how to get power and keep it.
And that school of thought is Machiavellianism. Yep, named after Niccolo Machiavelli. It's a philosophy that takes a, let's be honest, pretty cynical view of people. It basically says that to win, you have to operate based on pure strategy, the calculated use of fear, and a laser focus on your own self-interest.
And this is what just ties it all together beautifully. Look at this. The classic Machiavellian principle of strategy, what does that look like today? Controlling conversations. The old principle of using fear, that's been updated to appearing untouchable, which inspires a kind of respect that's born from, a little bit of intimidation. And of course, self-interest. That's the engine driving this entire machine. So after breaking all this down, we're left with a really big question. Is mastering this kind of silent influence just a necessary toolkit for getting by in a competitive world? Or by building up all this armor, all this detachment and control, do you risk cutting yourself off from any real, genuine human connection?
That's the central dilemma for the architect of silent influence.